And joining us now on the WashU Sports Network as part of our Bears in Hibernation weekly series is WashU men's soccer coach Joe Clarke. Coach, how are we doing this morning?
Great, Chris. Good morning. Beautiful.
Great to see you, and I miss seeing you in the office every day, Joe.
Oh, that is for sure. I miss human contact. I actually had some neighbors knock at the door the other day, and I opened the door and I yelled to my wife, "Humans!" It just doesn't happen now.
Well, it looks like a beautiful day in St. Louis today, Joe. Well, as our part of our Bears in Hibernation weekly series, we like to reach out to some of our coaches and staff members to see what they've been up to during COVID-19. So my first question to you, Joe, is what's been keeping Joe Clarke busy during COVID-19?
So incredibly busy. Partly with Paul earning his new head coaching job. I picked up all of the recruiting and had to catch up with the things that he was doing. And now there's no way to go watch players play. So players are finding ways to upload whole games. And so you're watching games and you're reaching out players and you're interacting with the admissions. And so you're doing all of those things. And then the NCAA has relaxed some of the rules during this period about what you can do with your own team. And so I'm working with my team, the leadership group. We're having meetings, and I'm able to do some educational things. So I'm cutting video. And then I started, it's a very small group, but I started a D3 coaches like education deal where we're all working on different aspects of the game. And lastly, there are so many podcast webinars with great coaches, soccer experts, the highest levels. They have nothing to do, and people are reaching out to them, and I'm listening and watching a lot of that.
Joe, I want to first start off our interview. I want to talk a little bit about your college soccer career, a tremendous 4-year career at SLU. You won 2 national championships in 72 and 73. Joe, how special was it to play for the hometown team, the Billikens, after attending McBride High School in the late 60s?
You know, I guess it feels special when SLU knocks on the door. At that time, that was kind of like the certified grade A, AAA grade stamp of approval. And really when Harry and Val refereed a game when I was a junior that I was playing, and then they pulled me aside after the game. And I was recruited to several schools and got a little confused, but I knew all along that I wanted to go to St. Louis U. And then playing there, all St. Louis guys, going around when we'd play in the tournament, we might meet another team or two that was American, certainly SLU or Edwardsville was. But for the most part, it was all internationals, all players that were anywhere from our age to 10 years older than us, from all over the world. And to win those games as a collection of guys from St. Louis, it just meant a lot to us. It was huge.
Joe, you also went on to play 7 years of professional soccer. You played with St. Louis Stars, the California Surf, which I think is probably one of the coolest mascots in all of sports, and then also the St. Louis Steamers, a team that I grew up rooting for as a youngster. Can you talk to our fans just a little bit about that experience and how special it was as a professional athlete for 7 years?
You know, it was a dream. You get up, I mean, in California, come on, we get up, practice was at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'd have to, you go in, your kit's laid out, you might have a team meeting. One of the other players and I used to get there early and either run and do yoga or what have you. And then you play soccer, you'd go to breakfast together with some guys on the team around noon. And then you had the rest of the day to yourself, whether you played golf or whatever, and you traveled all over the country and your meals were all provided. You weren't making a lot of money, but what a way to live for a while.
Joe, do you have a moment that kind of stands out in your 7-year professional career that's kind of like a top memory?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I have a story, but it's a long story. But for the soccer people, I don't know if you really want me to tell it. The soccer people love it. But I played with a guy that was one of the world's greatest players, Carlos Alberto. And if you remember Sports Illustrated used to put his goal on. He scored in the '70 World Cup against Mexico, and it was a great goal. And after he scored, he ran behind the nets and Pelé, and everybody came and celebrated with him. And oh, the story is so long. Anyway, a guy's kind of got a breakaway, and I'm playing right back, and I'm racing in diagonally to go onto the goal line behind my goalkeeper, who's going out towards the penalty spot to close down this forward who's coming in on him one-on-one. Meanwhile, Carlos Alberto is also recovering, and he can't intercept the player on the ball either. But he's coming, but he's going to arrive later than me. But he's coming to get back on that goal line. This guy goes by our goalie at the penalty spot, and then he goes just to slide it in the net, and he kind of miscalculates, and I'm going to get to this ball. But the guy I'm playing against, he's also racing. He's just like 2 yards behind me. So he's racing in order to try to get on the end of this ball and to put it into the net. So I get to the ball, and I kick it out of bounds for a corner kick. Well, Carlos is at like the 4-yard line. And the player that I was against was in between the two of us, but I could have done what he asked. But he says, Joe, here. So he points to his feet. He goes, here, you go. 1, 2, we go. I said, Carlos, it never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind. He wanted me to do a 1-2 on the goal line with our goalie laying on the ground, you know. So that was a great memory in many respects, because it just shows the gap between a world's great player and the game that I played.
Joe, in your 7-year career playing professional soccer, or even during your college career, because I know you said you played against some of the best, in the world, who's the best player that you have ever played against in your career?
Okay, I'll say who didn't get in when we played Pelé. I did play directly against Johan Cruyff and George Best, so I would say probably those two in terms of name. I also did play on the field, but we weren't one-on-one against each other, against Beckenbauer. And playing those guys, Johan Cruyff and George Best, are like two of the biggest names in the history of soccer, and I covered those guys, so they would be the biggest names.
Joe, when your professional career came to a close in 1982, I read up that you were pursuing a legal career. How in the heck did you end up as the men's soccer coach at St. Louis University in 1983 when you were pursuing a legal career?
Well, I wasn't ever really pursuing a legal career. I really wanted to keep playing pro soccer. But I knew if I'm going to play pro soccer, I better do something to help me get a job when this is done. So I went to law school while I was playing pro soccer. And then when the Steamers let me go, I had to make a choice, because I could have moved on. Kansas City wanted me to come up there and play, or I could stop. I was back home. I had had 3 knee surgeries. It was time for me to stop. And so I was interviewing with law firms, and Harry Keel resigned at the same time. And I loved soccer still. And somehow I ended up the head coach at St. Louis U. And so I've just kind of stayed in the business, and I've gotten my brother out of a speeding ticket. I probated an estate for a friend, and another friend graduated from Kansas in architecture, and I put his partnership together. Everything was pro bono. And I'm about 50 grand or more in the red as an attorney.
That's a neat story, Joe. Let's talk a little about your coaching career. Joe, you're starting your 24th season at WashU. Your next win actually will be your 250th. So you have 249 wins. You've been to 10 NCAA appearances, no losing seasons, Joe. That's the key. So talk to our fans about what has been the key to keep a consistent winning team on the field for WashU for now 23 plus years.
Well, really, overall, I'm not happy with where we are entirely, or the levels that we've reached. And I think we've had a few very, very good teams. And when that happened, I think the team had several players who were special at pulling everybody on that team together. And then there was talent to go along with it. And so we've had a couple of teams that were very, very high quality. I'd say particularly 2008 and 2011. There might have been another one or two, but those teams were very good. There was a couple teams good in the beginning. You know, Washington U draws really great people. Kids want to go to school here. So if you're fortunate enough to find some of those high academics that are also good players and they choose to come, you're going to land some talent. You don't have to sell kids. The pieces just have to come together for them to come. The hard part at WashU is you don't know if you'll have 7 right wingers, if you'll have 6 center backs. I mean, I've had teams where I had no center backs on my whole roster. I had a team where 7 starters. If you asked me if they asked you what position, if you asked them what position did they play, they would tell you their best position was right wing. But they just had to move around because I put our best team together. So that's been kind of a challenge. I think we're reaching some new territories at WashU and how recruiting works and admissions works. And I think there's really an opportunity to pull a team together that has more character traits in advance of what you need to have a quality team.
Joe, my last question for you. You're entering your 38th season as a head coach, 454 wins, which is 22nd on the all-time men's soccer list. But probably what impresses me most about you, Joe, is I see you every day in the office. You're right down the hall. You love to come to work every day. You really enjoy coaching young student athletes. So my question to you is, what do you enjoy most about coming to work? And I'm sure a lot of that you miss right now as you prepare for your 2020 season.
Well, I think I'm passionate about the players. I care about the players and building relationships with them, and then trying to help them to become better players. And then, you know, I've met with coaches a lot of times and we talk about coaching. They ask me questions and I say, look, this is how it works. You just keep working at getting better. You read, you watch other players coach, you think about how you do it, you try to become better, and you work at it and work at it and work at it. You never get there. You just die. That's the end. You're the same way in your business. You just have to relentlessly pursue trying to become better. You owe that to your players, and there's just no way to approach a position if you're not going to do that.
Well, Joe, I wanted to thank you for coming on and talking a little bit about your college playing days, your pro days, and also your coaching days. And Joe, I really look forward to hopefully seeing you in the office soon as we get ready for that 2020 season that's right around the corner.
It is, Chris. It was fun. It's good to see you. Yeah, I hope that real life returns sometime soon. So spend some time working on that vaccine.